Hello everybody and welcome. This is my guide to how the guild I'm in defeats the Fire Raid Rift in its current form after its recent nerf. Like the other raid rifts, it has been designed to be done by 10 people, but up to 20 can be in the raid, and all are eligible for loot and the inscribed source stone. For the first few times at least, I recommend bringing extra people to make things go more smoothly. You will need 2 tanks for this rift, who should have a minimum of 100 toughness, though more is preferable. We normally have at least 1 healer on each tank, and several raid or support healers. DPS for this rift need at least 100 hit or focus. I will be doing what I normally do with this video by going through each phase and the tactics involved, but I'll be also pointing out the things that have changed or been removed from this rift's previous incarnation. If you didn't attempt the old rift, then these can just be ignored. So to begin with, I shall start with something that has been removed. All DPS used to have to be inside the rift to not receive a debuff that would make them do 99% less damage. This has been removed, so ranged DPS can now stand outside the rift to do their full damage. For the first 3 stages there will be a bubble at the back of the rift. Just ignore this, as running into it just knocks you back or teleports you to the centre of the rift. The first stage has entirely changed and become much more simple. There are 3 groups of minions stood near cauldrons. We just have the tanks pick these up and then AoE them down quickly. They did not seem to have any abilities that caused any problems. When the last group is killed, the phase is complete. Phase 2 has not changed. It has 3 groups, each comprising of 2 raptors and a handler. They all cleave, so be careful with positioning. We use 2 tanks here, 1 tank to pick up the raptors and the other the handler. Be careful about your positioning when fighting these, as the other packs will wander around the rift quite far. Other than that, just DPS them down, and when the last handler dies, the stage is complete. Everyone should then run out of the rift, as Skarl the dragon will start doing his AoE at this point. Phase 3 is the first of the timed phases. The boss is a large raptor named Norox. A tank should pick him up and bring him to near the edge of the rift where the raid is standing. Norox has a cleave, a tail swipe, and will charge random members of the raid. People should spread out a bit so they don't get cleaved or tail swiped when he has done his charge. This phase used to be much more difficult due to the AoE done by the dragon Skarl, who is flying above. This has been toned down, as ranged DPS and healers should all just stay outside the rift, as the AoE will not affect them there. As you can see in the video, I spend the whole time pretty much stood still and never get affected by the AoE. White circles will appear on the ground in the rift, and shortly after, Skarl will shoot a fireball at this area. These fireballs do reasonable damage and place a nasty dot on the target. The circles will appear in a pattern on the ground in the rift, and Skarl will do a volley. He will then take a break for a while before doing another volley, and so on. Melee DPS can try to run out during the fireballs if needed, but we just assign a healer to cleanse the dot and heal through the damage. When Norox is dead, the phase is over. Phase 4 has 2 bosses which will spawn near the altar. One is a warrior and the other is a mage. The mage seems to take about 50% increased damage from magic, while the warrior takes increased damage from physical. We split the raid between the 2 as both want to die at nearly the same time, as when one dies, the other gains a buff reducing the damage it takes and increasing its damage. We have a tank pick each one up. They then need to be moved apart so that the beam between them is broken. They will heal each other while the beam is between them, so we have a tank on the warrior one, move him across the rift as he is much easier to move than the mage. The mage will cast a pillar of fire effect AoE on the ground. Make sure that people are moving out of this. The warrior will do a point blank AoE attack. You will get a screen message saying that he is readying his weapon before he does this, and it has a long cast bar. Make sure everyone in melee moves away at this point, as it will probably one-shot most people. When one reaches 0 health, it will run back to the altar before dying. If the other boss is nearby, he will get healed. Because of this, and because of the AoE, we kill the mage one slightly before the warrior, having everyone switch to the warrior when the mage runs to the altar, to finish off his last few percent quickly. The warrior will then run to the altar to die. Everyone should use this time to run out of the rift to not pull Skarl early. It is a good idea for DPS, at least, to make the boss they are not assigned to DPS their focus target. This allows them to see both health bars, and they can make sure that they both are nearly the same by either switching target or lessening their DPS on their assigned target. When the second one of these has died, the phase is complete. Phase 5 is the final boss, Skrull. He is a somewhat annoyed dragon. Like most dragons, he has a breath attack, cleave and a tail swipe. We have a tank pick him up and face him parallel to the raid. Melee DPS need to be careful to be at the side of the boss near the middle to avoid being killed. Healers and ranged DPS should stay at or near to maximum range, as Skrull will rise up and begin casting an AoE. All melee need to run, as do any range that are too near. This AoE has a pretty big radius and will one-shot people, so everyone needs to move out. He will summon tiny fire elementals that link to a player by a fire beam. They will move to that player, and if they reach them they explode, pulling all nearby people in and causing damage. This can be a problem if there is more than one exploding at a time. The people targeted by the elementals will take some damage from the beam, so this phase requires a bit of raid healing to keep people up. As long as DPS avoid the AoE and the fire elementals are controlled, Skrull should fall. When he does, the rift is complete. Thank you everyone for watching. I've been Zero Override, and I wish you luck in defeating this rift.